Downstairs now, though, HD's got a few guys.
Yeah, thanks very much, Palmer. I do. I've got Shaun Pollock and Kepler Wessels alongside me. A couple of interesting topics that were brought up there in the studio, guys. I'm going to go back to the one about the captaincy, Kepler. I mean, both of you captained at Protea level. Do you think that this could be having an effect on Hashim Amla's form? And on top of that, if Hashim decided at some stage, no, he doesn't want it anymore, who?
Well, I think that's pretty obvious. I think then you've got to go to Basil D'Oliveira Trophy. I mean, he's the one guy who's certain of his place in the side. He's the best player in the world, probably. We've seen that captaincy doesn't affect his performance, doesn't affect his batting. Nothing really affects his batting performance. So he can clearly deal with the pressure. I'm sure Hashim's feeling lots of pressure, and it must be having an impact on his batting. I mean, one of the things about captaincy and batting at the top of the order is that when you're busy batting, that's all you've got to think about. While you're batting, you can't think about the captaincy, because your main job for the team is to score runs and try and lead from the front. So if you have thoughts at the back of your mind about captaincy while you're batting, it's a problem. I'm sure he's finding the going right now pretty tough, handling his own situation and also dealing with the pressure of the captaincy of a losing team.
Okay, a couple of changes now made to the side. It's been released to the public. Chris Morris comes in, Shaun, as does Quinton de Kock. Number one, are you happy with those changes, and can you see them playing in the second Test match?
Yeah, I think I can see Quinton playing. I think Morris comes in just as a replacement. It's interesting that Marshant Talanga was the replacement in India, but he doesn't find his way in, and I think Fulyun's been the one who's been getting wickets. But I think the contribution down the order is what they're looking for. If he does play, that he can maybe get some runs. But I think that's the least of your worries. Pick your bowlers to do your bowling job, get the wickets, and take your top 7 or top 6 to get the runs, and then you have a wicket keeper. The Quinton de Kock decision, I thought he should have been in from the first place. So that would just mean that the selectors, if he does play, are just going back on what they initially thought. Why give AB de Villiers an extra responsibility? Just let him bat and get as many runs as you can. And Quinton de Kock's been in good touch, so that one makes sense for me. As far as any other changes, I might be a bit of a softie, but I'd love to see them given another opportunity. For example, who's the only batsman left in the equation? Quinton de Kock comes in, so someone has to miss out. That's fine. Riley Rousseau, his last game he played, he didn't get any runs against England either. So he made one fail, but now he's going to get promoted to the Test arena. Steyn van Zyl at the top is at the right place. He started to get the runs, got 33. I wouldn't want to see him tinker. I think Quinton de Kock definitely comes in, which should bolster it because he's confident, and also allow AB just to concentrate on his batting.
Who are you picking him in front of?
I don't know. That's the thing. You know, you've got your options. Obviously, you've got JP who wasn't out in the second innings. So I suppose you say, well, he's only been out once. Bavuma failed twice. Faf du Plessis failed twice. So
you would think it's between those three, wouldn't you?
It would be. I mean, Dean Algar was superb. If he had failed, he might have been in the discussion as well. That's how sensitive and weak, or not weak, fragile is the word I'm looking for, the batting lineup's been.
But I think it's a bigger issue. I think, look, selection obviously important, but I think the bigger issue is that since readmission, South African teams have been hard to beat. They haven't always been the best. They haven't always been better than the opposition, but they weren't beaten easily. And the reason for that has been the professionalism, the standards that were set, the fighting spirit, all those things. And for me, that's the crux of the matter right now. That's not so evident at the moment. We saw the team disintegrate and fragment in India. That continued now on home soil. And that, for me, is the biggest concern.
Do you think that it was because of India, or could you see this sort of happening before in Bangladesh, maybe?
Well, I think it started in Bangladesh. I think possibly wasn't taken seriously enough once those warning signs were there. The initial part of the Indian tour was successful as far as the one-day matches, the T20s were concerned. But the Test matches there was always going to be a big challenge, and you had to be mentally attuned for what you're going to face there. Yeah. Once India lost the one-day matches and the T20 matches, you were always going to get those radical turning surfaces because they are desperate to win. So I just think that the signs probably not picked up early enough.
I think the manner of the defeats is exactly as Kepler's touching to. If we're competitive, and you know, we've lost 3-0 in the series to Australia, but some of the games have gone down to a wire, and you won't be asking too many questions about that. The fourth Test that was drawn in India, we probably would have lost that one too in the situation we found ourselves. So we've been on the back foot, and we were expecting someone to bounce back, and I think that's where the difficulty lies for us, and the disappointment, and the fact that it's local conditions, we're going to be back to our normal way. and then all of a sudden we lose, and we don't just get lose, we get trounced here in Durban.
Are you referring to the fielding? Is that really what you feel referring to, Kepler?
Well, I mean, the fielding, if you look at fielding standards set by South African teams through the years, it has been brilliant at times, both in the one-day arena and in the test arena as well. If you just look at the test team, we've had Slips Gordons who were, well, phenomenal. And now, you know, we've got a couple of inexperienced guys in the slip cordon. They can't help that because it's early on in their test career. But if you have a seam-based attack and you rely on your seamers to take the wickets, those positions and those situations are key, and they're crucial. And you've got to plan for things that as you move on. You've got to have a contingency plan for someone at the top of the order, someone in the slip cordon when people retire. I don't think we quite had that.
I think also we've been making excuses for the side. I mean, De Villiers wasn't there in Bangladesh, so it's not going according to plan. Dale Steyn hasn't played in India, that's why we haven't performed. We can't go down that alley anymore. When you keep losing in this manner, in fact, you've got to start looking at each individual and saying, okay, hold on, the responsibility, you're playing for your test team, you need to produce the results. We can't start worrying about other guys stepping in and the senior players doing that. Every single person now needs to contribute because it's a team effort that's required. Some of the class individuals have left the equation.
We hear this word knee-jerk spread around all the time. Do you feel that this isn't knee-jerk reaction anymore? We need a reaction.
Absolutely. I mean, if it's a one-off loss and a bad loss, well, then possibly you could look at knee-jerk. But we lost 3 in India. We would have lost probably 4, if we're brutally honest. If Bangalore didn't rain out, we were in a bad position. And now we come on home soil and we lose badly at home as well. It's not knee-jerk. You've got to have, as you say, a reaction and a positive reaction.
And we need to stress bowlers. Bowlers have been good. The bowlers have been good.
Yeah. Okay. Guys, I know we could carry on here all day because there's so much to talk about. We haven't had this opportunity to really dissect the South African Test side for some time. They've been so good. And now, well, we're all a little bit uncertain down here. Back to you, Pom.
Yeah, well, perhaps don't go too far away. Mikey Holding has joined us here, and I just want to throw something back down. And Kepler sort of started to talk about it and then didn't quite continue. He said the cracks, the warning signs, and could have been stopped, I suppose, or could have tried to stop it by heeding them. My question would be, how, Kepler?
Well, I think when you get in a crisis situation like this, your first thing you look at is your team management and leadership, your leadership within the team. I think you need to have very strong leadership in this situation to try and get the best out of the ability at your disposal. I mean, you may not have, as I said, you might not have as many talented players as you had. In fact, we don't. But you've still got to try and have strong leadership to work with the ability that you've got and to maximize the talent that you have so that you can compete.
I think also you can't be looking for excuses. And I mean, I know when I played, if I got 5 for whatever, I'd look at how could I have got better? If I didn't get any runs, what could I have done differently? And sometimes what we've done over the last period is when we haven't performed well, we said, oh, well, AB wasn't there, Dale wasn't there, Vernon's been injured. You can't look along it from those lines. You've actually got to look at what you can do to create solutions, what you can do to make those players play to their full potential.
Yeah, I'd like to know from Graeme, really, Pom, is that if you manage to get 20% better performances out of this current group of players, are South Africa still going to be top of the tree, or have we got to get real here? Is our cricket in a little bit of a slump?
I think after recent performances we have to say yes. I mean, when you lose 4 of your last 5 test matches, I don't think we've won a test match in 6 or 7 tests. That's probably our worst run since readmission. So you've got to start asking questions. And you know, the fact is, when you look around domestic cricket at the moment, everyone's saying, is it still of the standard it used to be? Our test side is maybe not fronting up like we are used to them doing. So you immediately start looking in places, and rightly so. And I agree. I think leadership needs to stand up now. There's still some quality players there that need to find a way to perform, and you know, this cannot carry on any longer. It can't. Like we go into Newlands, it's a full house. People are excited about the summer of cricket, and you know, unfortunately, the team's got to find a way. And I agree, we might not win. If we don't win, that's fine. But let's show a way. Let's show what we're about.
Well, Paulie made the same point I was making earlier on about finding excuses. Forget the excuses. Find a way to get the job done. It just has to be done.
Yeah. Well, I'll throw something else out. You know, sometimes people look at things and say, well, everyone says the team is bad, but in all the criticism, it's probably not as bad as they say. And sometimes they look at it the other way around and say, oh, these guys are really good, but they're probably not as good as people are saying that they are. Are we able here to find what reality is? And this is in talking to what you're saying, 5, 6, 7 test matches, no wins, and difficulty and many losses in that.
Look, as I said earlier, I think I can't fault the work that the guys are going to put in behind the scenes. I know they're going to bowl 1,000 balls, they're going to take 1,000 catches, they're going to hit as many balls possible, but they need to put some thought into that and start figuring out how to maximise that, make that successful for them on the field. I think the decision makers in the leadership group need to get the team off on the right platform. They need to make the right decisions. I think there's just too much patchwork at the moment.
Okay, so not putting you on the spot or anything, if you say they need to make the right decision, what are the right decisions? And that's
I'll answer for Smithy. It's put him on a spot. The right decisions are putting the right people in the right positions. That's the first thing. As Smithy said, as I intimated earlier on commentary, patchwork does not work when you're trying to rebuild a team. South Africa are trying to rebuild a team. They've lost a lot of great players within a short period of time. You do not rebuild a team by bringing somebody from number 7 to make him open, or from number 6 to make him open, or making an opener bat at number 8 and all of a sudden he's a lower order batsman. You look for the specialist batsmen who have been doing their jobs at your domestic level in whatever positions that they have been doing it, and put them in those positions at the higher level. You can't start pushing them all around the place when you're trying to rebuild a team. This is not a situation where you have someone that has been injured. Sorry, beg your pardon. Someone that has been injured, you know he's a performer and he's going to come back in, so you're looking to stopgap that position until he comes back in. This is a rebuilding process from what I can see with South African cricket, and you cannot rebuild with patchwork.
Okay. I think Mikey brings up a really good point there, and it's leading off what Graeme was saying with regard to the domestic game. We keep hearing, is the domestic game's not strong, so we can't pick from them. So then, are we saying that this is it? That's what we refuse to go to the domestic game because we think that it's not strong? And if it's not strong, what are we doing about it?
Well, the domestic game is not as strong as it was, we know that. But that's the only platform where a player can perform and can push for selection. So if you don't give them an opportunity, Stephen Cook being case in point, you're never going to know, are you? I mean, the only thing he can do is score runs at domestic level because that's the only platform he has. Now, there was a time where the divide between domestic cricket and test cricket, well, it hardly existed. I mean, sometimes we play tougher domestic matches than we play test matches. Now, that's no longer the case. But that doesn't take away from the fact that all you can ask a player to do, trying to work his way into the test side, is to perform at domestic level. So if he's doing that consistently, somewhere along the line, you're going to have to see if he's good enough at top level.
We talk about domestic cricket, but what about the SA team? There was 2 innings there. Not one person put his hand up to say, listen, if something goes wrong, I'm the next man.
Well, Stephen Cook did bat through. Got 53 not out batting through.
Well, then maybe he's the man to be given an opportunity.
Yeah, I think, for the guys upstairs, I think that's where it is. There's so much uncertainty around the domestic game that people are unsure whether you can take players from there and whether they'll be successful at international cricket.
Yeah, thank you for your thoughts, H.D. Ackerman, Kepler Wessels, Shaun Pollock. Yeah, there's a whole lot, I think, that could continually be spoken about, and who the right man is and who the right man isn't. I think it becomes more apparent which the right men aren't, Graeme, when they don't succeed. But essentially, that's not what it means all the time, isn't it? Some can go through slumps in form, but it's determining that that's also quite difficult.
Yeah, well, I think there's 3 assured places for the South African team in that batting lineup of say 7. I think Dean Elgar, Hashim Amla and AB de Villiers are there. The rest, everyone's going to debate. And that's the problem. When you're debating 4 places, it's a lot of places to debate. I think when you've got a really successful batting lineup, you might say, okay, if we get that guy in, he'll bolster the batting lineup. The rest are doing a wonderful job. But at the moment, it's not the case. There's too many question marks.
Okay.
Well, you talk about domestic cricket not being what it was. South Africa is not the only country where that situation applies. A lot of domestic cricket around the world is not what it was many years ago. But if you have someone performing at the domestic level, I don't know what this gentleman Cook is averaging.
He's an opening batsman.
Yeah, but I know he's an opening batsman. Yeah. I have no idea what his figures are to say, okay, he might be averaging 50 or 60 or whatever it is at domestic level. If he's doing that and doing that on a regular basis, getting runs on a regular basis, you have to try him at the international level. The problem is when your domestic level of cricket is so low that you have no one doing well. The batsmen averaging 26 at domestic level, they're going to go to test match cricket and average 15. That is a problem. But if you have people playing domestic cricket, irrespective of whether you think it's not as good as it was before, but they're having a good average as a batsman at domestic level, you have got to try them at the international level.